Hey everyone, and welcome back to ABA Chapter Chat. Today we're diving into something that might sound a little dry at first, but trust me, it's way more interesting than it sounds: economic control.
Oh, yeah.
Now, before you start picturing spreadsheets and stock tickers,
Right.
let me assure you, we're keeping things strictly behavioral.
Okay.
Think of it this way. We're going to explore how those core ABA principles we use every day connect to things like how we earn money, spend money,
Yeah.
and even why some people get hooked on things like gambling. We've got a fascinating chapter from B.S. Skinner's Science in Human Behavior to guide us.
Very cool.
So get ready for some aha moments.
You know what I find fascinating about this whole topic is that economic control is something we're all participating in.
Yeah.
Whether we're conscious of it or not.
Right.
It's happening every time we use goods, money, or other things that reinforce behavior to influence someone's actions.
Okay, let's break that down a bit. What exactly do we mean by economic control in the context of ABA?
Well, it's all about using things people find valuable or enjoyable to
Okay.
shape their behavior.
Right.
And this is where the link to ABA becomes so clear.
Yeah.
As ABA professionals, we're always looking for what reinforces our clients.
Right.
And using those reinforcers to increase desired behaviors. We're essentially engaging in economic control, but in a therapeutic and ethical way, of course.
So it's like we're creating mini economies within our therapy sessions.
That's a great way to put it. And it's not just about tangible rewards either. We have to consider things like schedule of reinforcement, giving rewards after a certain number of responses or a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
Those schedules can have a huge impact on how motivated someone is.
That makes total sense. Now, we can't talk about economic control without talking about money.
Right.
But how does money, something that doesn't inherently do anything, become so powerful as a motivator?
That's the really interesting part. Think about the words goods and wealth.
Okay.
They both have roots and ideas of things being inherently good or beneficial.
Right.
The things money can get us are the actual reinforcers, but money itself is a generalized conditioned reinforcer.
Gotcha.
It's been paired with so many other reinforcers that it's gained the ability to reinforce a huge range of behaviors on its own.
So it's like those token economies we use in ABA. The tokens aren't valuable in themselves,
Right.
but they can be exchanged for things the kids want, which makes them motivating.
Exactly. Money is basically the ultimate token economy.
Wow.
Think about the example Skinner gives in the chapter.
Okay.
Tipping for good service or paying someone to do chores. These ordinary examples really highlight those basic reinforcement principles. But with money as the tool, it's fascinating how embedded this all is in our daily lives.
I'm with you there. It's amazing how a concept like this to be operating in the background without us even realizing it.
Right. And just like in our practice, we can't assume everyone is motivated by the same things.
Right.
Skinner actually talks about extra economic reinforcers, meaning things beyond just financial gain.
Oh, I'm curious about that. What are some examples of those extra economic reinforcers?
Sure.
And how might they influence our work with clients?
These are things like the feeling of satisfaction from completing a task,
Okay.
receiving praise or recognition for a job well done, or simply working in a positive and supportive environment.
Yeah.
Think about how you feel when someone genuinely acknowledges your hard work. That feeling of being valued can be incredibly motivating.
Absolutely. I know I'm way more productive and willing to go the extra mile when I feel appreciated for my efforts.
Yeah.
So how can we as ABA professionals leverage these extra economic reinforcers?
It all comes down to truly understanding our clients and what's meaningful to them individually. It might be a tangible reward,
Right.
but it could also be something less tangible like verbal praise,
Okay.
a special privilege, or even just a sense of accomplishment from mastering a new skill. The key is to tailor our approach to each client's unique needs and preferences.
It sounds like we need to be detectives of sorts,
Yeah.
figuring out the unique things that make our clients tick.
I like that analogy. It highlights the importance of individualized care in ABA.
Yeah.
But digging deeper, there's another layer to economic control that Skinner explores.
Okay.
The concept of wage schedules. He argues that different ways of paying people, or in our case, providing reinforcement, can actually lead to very different patterns of behavior.
Okay, I'm all ears. How do these different wage schedule affect behavior? Let's start with an example from our daily lives. How about getting paid hourly versus getting paid per project?
Perfect example. Think about how each scenario might impact your work style. If you're paid hourly, you're guaranteed a certain amount regardless of how much you accomplish in a given hour. This is what we call a fixed interval schedule.
Okay.
On the other hand, if you're paid per project,
Right.
your earnings are directly tied to your output. The more you do, the more you earn. This is a fixed ratio schedule.
Okay.
And each of these schedules can lead to different behavioral patterns.
So someone on a fixed interval schedule might be more likely to pace themselves knowing they'll get paid the same regardless of whether they finish one project or five in an hour. Whereas someone on a fixed ratio schedule might be more inclined to power through tasks to maximize their earnings.
You got it. And those are just two examples.
Right.
Skinner explores other schedules like variable schedules where reinforcement is delivered less predictably.
Okay.
These can be incredibly powerful, but they also present unique challenges.
This is making me think about how we approach reinforcement in ABA.
Yeah.
Finding the right schedule for each client must be crucial to keeping them motivated without leading to burnout or overdependence on rewards.
Absolutely. It's a constant process of assessment, adjustment, and fine-tuning.
Wow.
And that's what makes our work both challenging and rewarding. Understanding these principles of economic control gives us a powerful lens to view not just how economies work, but how we can design more effective and individualized interventions for our clients.
That's a fantastic point. Now that we've laid some groundwork with the basics of economic control, let's get into some really relatable territory.
Okay.
Buying and selling.
Yeah.
We've all been there, whether it's scoring an amazing deal online or caving to that impulse buy at the checkout line. What's the behavioral angle to all this?
Well, it's fascinating to consider that our buying and selling decisions are also governed by reinforcement.
Okay.
We tend to purchase things that are reinforcing to us.
Right.
And the price we're willing to pay reflects just how strongly reinforcing something is.
It's more than just needing or wanting something then. It's about how much value we place on it, right? I know I've definitely justified splurging on things even if I'm trying to be budget conscious, if it's something I really value.
Exactly. It's all about that perceived value. And this value can be influenced by a ton of things.
Oh, yeah?
Not just the item itself, supply and demand, clever marketing, even social pressure.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes we might buy things just to fit in or impress others, not because we truly need or even want them.
Oh, the pressure to keep up with the Joneses is definitely real.
Right.
But it's interesting to think about how that social pressure can actually function as a type of reinforcement, even if we don't consciously realize it.
It's a powerful force, and understanding these subtle influences can be incredibly valuable for ABA professionals.
How so?
Well, think about a client who struggles with excessive spending or hoarding.
Okay.
We might need to look beyond the behavior itself and investigate what's driving it. What are the underlying reinforcers?
Right.
And what social or environmental factors might be contributing to the behavior?
So it's like we're not just behavior analysts.
Right.
We're economic detectives trying to understand the hidden motivations behind our clients' actions.
I love that. And this detective work can be applied to so many areas, but one that Skinner specifically addresses that I find particularly unique is gambling. He dives into how these reinforcement principles, particularly variable ratio schedules on games of chance.
Okay. I've always been puzzled by that. Why would someone risk losing money when they know the house usually wins? Break it down for me.
It's the allure of the unpredictable win that's so captivating. Think about slot machines.
Okay.
You never know when you're going to hit that jackpot. You might win on your first pull.
Right.
Or you might play for hours and see nothing. That uncertainty, that hope of a big win keeps people coming back.
So it's not just about winning. It's about the excitement and anticipation of the possibility of winning. I can see how that could be really hard to resist.
Absolutely. It's a powerful emotional hook, and casinos are experts at amplifying this effect with conditioned reinforcers.
Like what?
Think about the flashing lights, the celebratory music.
Oh, yeah?
The clinking coins. These stimuli become associated with the reward itself, the money, and start to exert control over behavior even if the person isn't consciously aware of it.
It's like they've created this whole sensory experience designed to keep you engaged and coming back for more. Understanding this behavioral side of gambling must be crucial for ABA professionals working with individuals struggling with gambling addiction.
It's absolutely essential. It's not about telling someone to simply stop gambling.
Right.
It's about understanding the underlying behavioral mechanisms at play and helping them develop alternative, healthier ways to experience reinforcement. We have to recognize the power of these variable ratio schedules and those conditioned reinforces and develop strategies to help people break free from those patterns.
It sounds like a multifaceted approach, drawing on our understanding of reinforcement, environmental cues, and even emotional regulation. It's quite a challenge.
It certainly is, but this is where the true power of behavior analysis shines. It equips us not just to observe what people do, but to understand why they do it. And this understanding opens up so many possibilities for creating positive change.
This has been so eye-opening. We've moved from these broad concepts of economic control to really specific examples of how it shows up in our lives and our work.
Yeah.
It's clear that behavior analysis can help us understand so much more than just individual behavior.
Absolutely. It's a framework for understanding how the world works, how people interact with their environment, and how we can leverage those principles to create better outcomes for ourselves and the people we serve.
Okay, we've covered a ton of ground from those core principles of economic control and the role of money as a reinforcer to buying and selling and even the complex world of gambling. But before we wrap things up,
Yeah.
let's circle back to something we touched on earlier,
Okay.
those different wage schedules and their implications for ABA practice.
That's a great point. We talked about fixed interval and fixed ratio schedules.
Right.
But remember, Skinner identified several others, each with its own unique effects on behavior. Understanding these different schedules and how they influence behavior is essential for designing effective interventions.
So for our listeners who are working in ABA, could you give us some more practical examples of how these different schedules might play out in therapy sessions?
Let's start with those fixed schedules. We often use fixed ratio schedules in ABA, especially when teaching new skills. Imagine you're teaching a child to put on their shoes. You might give them a sticker for every step they complete correctly. Touching the shoe, picking it up, putting their foot and fastening the strap. That consistent reinforcement for each correct response helps solidify the skill quickly.
That makes sense. And I imagine fixed interval schedules could be useful for promoting consistent effort over time. Maybe for something like completing homework assignments or engaging in a preferred activity for a set duration.
Exactly. If a student knows they'll get a reward for working on their homework for, say, 20 minutes, regardless of how much they get done in that time, it can encourage them to stay on task and develop those work habits.
But as we discussed earlier, those fixed schedules can also have some drawbacks. With fixed ratio, you might see a drop in motivation if the reinforcement isn't delivered consistently. And with fixed interval, you might see that procrastination effect, where the behavior only picks up right before the reward is delivered.
You're absolutely right, and that's where those variable schedules come in. Variable schedules are all about unpredictability.
Okay?
The reinforcement isn't delivered after a set number of responses or a set amount of time, so the individual never knows exactly when they'll be rewarded.
Okay, so give me a real-world ABA example of a variable schedule.
Imagine you're working with a child who's learning to communicate their needs using picture cards. Instead of giving them a reward every time they use a card correctly, you might use a variable ratio schedule where they get a reward after an average of 3 correct responses, but sometimes it might be after 2, sometimes after 4, sometimes even after just 1.
That keeps things interesting and prevents them from becoming too reliant on that immediate reward.
Precisely. Variable schedules can be incredibly powerful for maintaining behavior over time because they create that sense of anticipation and keep the individual engaged.
But wouldn't implementing those variable schedules be more challenging?
Yeah.
How do you make sure you're being fair and consistent if the reinforcement isn't tied to a specific number or time interval?
That's one of the main challenges with variable schedules. They require careful planning and a bit more creativity on our part. We have to track responses and reinforcement carefully to ensure we're delivering the reward at an appropriate rate.
This whole conversation has really highlighted the importance of individualized care in ABA. What works for one client might not work for another. We have to be attuned to their unique needs, preferences, and learning styles to design interventions that are both effective and ethical.
Couldn't agree more. And this is where our understanding of economic control reinforcement schedules and those extra economic factors becomes so crucial. It's about seeing the bigger picture and recognizing that we're not just shaping behaviors, we're shaping lives.
I love that. So with all that in mind, what are some key takeaways for our listeners who are looking to apply these concepts to their own practice?
First and foremost, remember that every interaction we have with our clients is an opportunity to influence their behavior. We are constantly engaged in economic control, whether we realize it or not.
Yeah, and understanding those different schedules of reinforcement can help us be more strategic and effective in our interventions.
Absolutely. Don't be afraid to experiment with different schedules. Track data carefully and adjust your approach based on what you observe.
And never underestimate the power of those extra economic reinforcers.
Exactly. Get to know your clients, understand their values, and find those unique things that make them feel good and motivate them to learn and grow.
It's about seeing beyond the behavior itself
Yeah.
and recognizing the whole person, their unique needs and aspirations.
Beautifully said. By combining our knowledge of behavior analysis with a compassionate and individualized approach, we can make a truly meaningful difference in the lives of our clients.
That's a fantastic note to end on. We've covered so much ground today, and I hope our listeners are leaving with a deeper understanding of economic control and its relevance to ABA practice. We hope you've enjoyed this deep dive, and we'll be back soon with another thought-provoking episode of ABA Chapter Chat.